Today we're going to be taking a look at this Puma RB. Is it a rule breaker or just overhyped? Let's take a look. Hello and welcome back to Stammerun. I'm John and today we are going to be taking a look at this £300 super shoe from Puma, the Puma RB. So let's get through some of the stats. All the stats I'm going to be telling you now are from the Puma website, and then I'll be giving you my opinion on some of the other stats. The Puma RB is a 58mm stack in the heel and a 46mm in the forefoot, giving it a 12mm offset. Now the legal race limit for these shoes that can be used are 40mm, so this is an extremely illegal race shoe. Now for us mere mortals who just kind of run a race every so often, who are not elites, I don't think that really matters so much for us, unless you're trying to be competitive, of course, and you're up in that elite range. Then, you know, my advice to be would probably not use this shoe, just in case your run doesn't count. The details for the upper are that they say this is an extremely lightweight ultra weave upper. Included in the stack height are the Nitro foam elite pods. In a UK size 8, this is a 337 gram shoe or a 11.4 ounces. So this is quite a heavy shoe already. So the mileage which they put on the website, which a lot of super shoe manufacturers don't necessarily do, so this is one of their features of this shoe for £300, is that this will go up to 500k. The pronation on this shoe is a neutral shoe. I've run nearly up to 100 miles in this shoe, so let me give you my opinions as we look through the shoe. If you watch any of my videos that are up, I'll put a link to up there now. So I'm not the biggest fan of this lightweight ultra weave. Now, I don't think this is an ultra weave in terms of what they're trying to say. Ultra means this is the best that you can get. I am not the biggest fan of this upper, and that has been very kind. So what this doesn't do, this doesn't hug your foot correctly. Now I'm a size 9 and I tend to buy a size 9. Even if you size down in this shoe, I think to get a good lockdown and a good fit, you would need to size down and a half. But then the problem with that is then the toe box will be narrower, and it will actually be too small in terms of the length of the shoe. And my biggest problem with this ultra weave on top is that it feels quite heavy, it feels quite coarse. Now when you put your foot into the shoe, if you buy your true to size, then what you'll tend to find happen is that your foot wants to be put down into this forefoot position here, and then your heel, because there's nothing in the heel counter at all, is your heel doesn't sit back against the heel piece, but there is obviously nothing there, so there's nothing kind of pushing you back. So if you go true to size, then what you will then find is that your foot will not sit quite right. So then what happens is that when you're on a run, your foot wants to sink down, and there's a weird sensation that your foot just feels like it's actually not locked down into the shoe. Now what I think Puma could have done here is some laces. I think even if you could have kind of cinched your feet down, because there aren't any, where I think Puma should have gone is back to something like this Puma Fast R. Now the material on this Puma Fast R, if you can see this, get it into focus, is that this sort of weave is that kind of typical kind of race style weave, that sort of plasticky feel, which I actually don't mind. And I think if they had have put this with the laces on the Puma RB, then I actually think that would be a much better shoe. I definitely prefer this material on the Puma Fast R, and also on this Puma Elite number 1 as well. So this Puma Elite number 1, I really like the material on this as well. This is very similar to the Puma Fast R, and I think that I don't understand what Puma were trying to do with an ultra weave. It's really heavy, it's really coarse, and it just doesn't feel nice. So if you're going to lock someone into a shoe and the laces aren't there, you need a material almost that's kind of compresses back onto the foot. So back to Puma RB. Now let's talk about this midsole. Nitro Elite foam on its own is perfectly fine. It's a responsive, I think it's a light foam. It's really hard to tell with the weight of the shoe. See, there's a big old wedge of it in here. There's a 58mm stack in the heel and a 46mm stack in the forefoot, giving it a 12mm offset. And when you do put your foot down, you can absolutely feel that. It is quite pronounced when you put your foot in, and this shoe wants to get you in that forefoot down. You don't actually touch your heel to the ground, only when you compress the shoe down, and it does compress. Now coming to the forefoot, what you have here is you have more of this Nitro Elite foam sandwiched, triple sandwiched in between. There's a full carbon plate that runs throughout the whole of the shoe. There's another carbon plate that sits on top of the pods, and then sandwiched between another carbon plate. So there are technically 3 carbon plates, 1 full and 2 kind of half plates with this Elite foam and these Elite foam pods. Just taking a look at these pods closer up, these are all foam. So these are Nitro Elite foam pods. There's nothing new to the pod game. I think the king on the pods are the Alpha Fly pods. So these Air Zoom pods are vastly superior. These are an Air Zoom pod that actually do something from Nike, and I think in terms of implementation of a pod, these are definitely superior and better, because these are not foam. You know, these are actually fibers within the Alpha Fly themselves. So the job that they actually do provide stability, and they actually do provide that propulsion on your runs. What this shoe does well with the pods is it does squish. When you put your foot into the Puma RB and you place your foot down and you go on a run, the first, in my opinion, first 10 to 20 minutes, this shoe is actually quite fun. You feel that propulsion from those plates. You do feel those pods. You do feel that foam. Now then after that, that sensation really, it's still there, but to a lesser amount. These pods, because they are foam, they compress and they never really come back up again until you kind of really stop. They do act as a buffer and a propulsion aid, but because they are foam and they're not the same as Air Zoom pods, when they're compressed, they do stay a little bit compressed. So as soon as then you start to run, that compression happens and they never quite come back to the full height as they do of pods. So those pods are okay. Do they bring anything new to the pod game? I don't think that they do. The Puma power plate. Puma power plate on other shoes works extremely well. So they have this full length power plate in the shoe, and then as I say, they have these carbon plates which are not full carbon. I think they are mixed in with a kind of a nylon stroke carbon plate. Do you feel the carbon plates? Yes and no. You certainly know there are carbon plates in there. Do I think you get that over propulsion feeling? I don't think you do. And I think the only purpose that they serve is to make this shoe heavier. And that's what they do ultimately. Is I don't think that they bring anything new to the super shoe conversation. I don't think that as an experiment 3 carbon plates works in this implementation, and I just think, as I've said, it just adds weight to the shoe. There is a huge rubber outsole here protecting the shoe, and then there's a large rubber outsole just on the back there in the heel. Now Puma grip is fantastic, and this is exactly the same as the other shoes. This Puma grip I think is brilliant. I think there's quite thick coverage on the shoe, again adding weight to the shoe in hopes that all the technology inside will alleviate some of that weight, and kind of, because it's so propulsive, that's what they aim to be, is that it doesn't really matter about the weight. Because of the bounciness of the shoes, it alleviates some of that weight of the rubber outsole. Now what this shoe does very well, which is quite surprising to me considering the stack height and the weight of the shoe, is how stable underfoot it feels. I was really surprised about the stability. So when we are talking about stability, we're not talking about this is a stable shoe, because this is a 58mm and a 46mm 12mm offset stack shoe, so it is not a stable shoe, but it is a stable shoe for the height of the shoe and compared to some other super shoes that are slightly higher. So previously high stack shoes have nothing on this at all, and that includes something like the Hoka Skyward X isn't even a patch on this in terms of kind of feel and height. However, that Hoka Skyward X does feel on foot higher when you then start to run, because it compresses so well. And that's another thing that I will say for the Puma RB, is that it does feel like a race style shoe. It does feel like other super shoes. But my biggest gripe about the shoe is, number one, the price of £300. Now, it will last for 500k. So for £300, actually, is it that bad? So for a super shoe to race in, lasting 500k would be brilliant. 2 points. Number one, you can't use this really to race, so that kind of alleviates that. And it's really heavy. It's approaching, in my size 9, 12 ounces for a super shoe. And again, you can get shoes that are heavy and don't feel that heavy. This feels so heavy, and it doesn't bring anything else to the conversation. This is a very futuristic looking shoe. Now there's a big slab of that foam there. There are these pods, these 3 carbon plates. This shoe really is a talking point. Some people really love the look, the aesthetic of the trainer. Some people think it's a bit OTT. Now, I love things that are trying to break the mold. So I actually really quite like the look of the Puma RB. I really like what they're trying to do with this upper, you know, this kind of one-piece upper. I don't think it works. I think it's too heavy and too coarse, but I really admire what it is that they're actually trying to do with the upper. I like how they're trying to push out the mold with these different aspects, is this different tech within the shoe. The fact that you can't even put your heel down when you first put the shoe on is crazy. My final thoughts on the Puma RB are, the experience is disappointing, because I wanted these to bring something else to the talking point of running shoes, to really kind of push the boundaries, really bring something new and fresh, even from an upper, even from these foam pods, and just bring something new and fresh and a talking point to the table. I don't think it does that for performance. I think it does because of the aesthetics and the looks and the 3 carbon plates and these foam pods. But there's a reason why manufacturers don't put in foam pods and don't add in 3 carbon plates or 2 carbon plates to their shoes. 1, it's expensive, and 2, because you have to really get that balance right. I don't think Puma have got that balance right here, but I do admire what it is that they're trying to do. Again, with the pricing of this, £300 is a lot for a super shoe, that you can't use. So this is more of a prototype, if you like. This is kind of a collector's piece, really, in my opinion, something that you want to own, because you can't necessarily own it again unless they kind of bring another 1,000 pairs out, which I kind of hope they don't in some respects, because it would be nice just to kind of have this shoe as a talking point. A plus point for the shoe is if you were to own it and like it, then you're getting a lot of super shoe here for £300 because it's going to last up to 500k. Now I've done up to about 100 miles and the wear and tear on here is minimal. There isn't a lot of wear and tear, which is really surprising for a £300 super shoe, which is ridiculous when you think about, to me, a super shoe is synonymous with not lasting that long, and you pay a lot more cash for it. So I do give a thumbs up there for Puma for coming up with a shoe, and actually you are paying £300 for a super shoe that's going to last. Really well done on that, and I think I agree that this will last up to 500k. I'm not sure about these pods though. Oh, and the shoe does squeak, so be warned, this shoe on a run squeaks and people will hear you coming. It sounds like a squeaky door. But outside of that, I think it's a really good talking point of a shoe. And if you are fortunate enough to get a pair, I'd be really interested to hear what you actually think about the shoe, whether you think some of my comments are right, comments are wrong, and overall what you think of the Puma RB super shoe. And on that note, please don't forget to like, favourite and subscribe. And of course, I'll see you on the next one. Take care.